Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. I just want to thank you for taking the time to hang out with me for a little bit today. And we are going to talk about, health, I guess is what you'd want to say, and advocating for yourself and stroke and Mayo Clinic. So I know in some of my prior videos, if you have watched them, I have kind of spoken about some heart conditions and going up to Mayo Clinic and stuff like that. So we're going to kind of touch base on that today and what that looks like for me and why I'm going and stuff like that. Now, by no means do I feel obligated to share my story with anybody, but I will say I really feel like it's something that's not talked about enough. So your health and some of the things that you may struggle with, or stuff like that, is just kind of taboo to talk about. Like, it's always kind of been like, don't talk about that. We don't want to share that kind of stuff. You can't tell people what medicines you're taking. You can't tell this. I don't see the reason. For some people, it may just be a personal, belief or whatever. But for me, I feel like I had to advocate pretty hard for myself and go through about 10 to 12 years of people telling me I was crazy. You're young, you're too young, that's not possible for you. That can't be what's happening. It can't be anything serious because you're this years old, or, whatever. And just kind of being shifted and moved around and boxed into something that just wasn't the case. So I wanted to share my story to either make people feel that they're like, what they're feeling inside is valid, the importance of advocating for your own health, and also that it's normal. We all have things that we struggle with. We all have things on a day-to-day basis that, we suffer with, per se, in silence, that not many people know about, the world doesn't know about. So it's an invisible illness, essentially. And a lot of people see you on the outside and they're like, she's got the perfect life. She's this, she's that. She's the woman across the room. She's got it going on, or he's got it going on, whatever. But everyone struggles with something. Some maybe not so severe. Some maybe more day-to-day stuff. Some maybe very big medical conditions. So I am here to tell you that it's normal. You're not crazy. It's normal. So let's jump right in. So when I was like probably late teens, early 20s, I started off with migraines, your typical migraines with aura. And if you're not familiar with what that means, I'm pretty sure you know what a migraine is, but the aura portion of it is neurological deficits. So that would be visual auras that kind of look like oscillating, like pixelated type things that go across your field of vision. Typically happens about a half hour to an hour prior to the onset of the throbbing headache. And I would also deal with neurological things such as numbness, tingling, speech issues, stuff like that. So that all started pretty early on. And I did speak to some doctors about it and kind of got the diagnosis of migraine, and I moved on with my life. As things started to progress, I distinctively remember one time, probably in my early 20s, I was still living in Florida at the time, where I was working that day and I had a migraine that day, and I had a very physical job, so it was pretty tough to work through it, essentially. And later that evening, I went home, and it was time to start like getting myself around to kind of like that shutdown mode, take my shower, get comfy clothes on, have some dinner, stuff like that. And my husband was still at work. And I was taking my clothes off to go into the shower, and it just hit me like a wave. And the left side of my arm down into my hand, it was almost like a thunderbolt went through, and it was numb and weak feeling. And I had some, like, in my tongue, it felt a little funky, and my speech was not correct. It's like, even though I knew what I was thinking in my head, it just didn't want to come out. And the side of my face. So I was really concerned. I absolutely went straight into panic mode, started freaking out, shaking, like just panic attack at that point. And it only lasted like 30 seconds to a minute. Did not last long. It went very quick, and I right back out of it. but it was terrifying. I called my husband immediately. He came home and we went straight to the ER. I spent the night in the ER. They ran some basic tests on me. And I know that visit, they did do an MRI. They said everything looked fine. So they chalked it up to anxiety, migraine, being that I had a migraine earlier that day, that kind of stuff. So we left it alone and I moved on with my life. And it just things seemed to increasingly get worse as I got older. I would get more migraines. I would get more deficits with my migraines, so much more like numbness and tingling in my fingers. The other time that I did go to the hospital for was definitely the one morning I woke up. I continued to get auras. So typically, that aura that I was telling you about, like the visual auras, will last about a half hour to an hour before the onset of the actual migraine. And it kept coming back. So it would last for about a half hour to an hour, it would dissipate and it would go away. And then 15 minutes later, it would come back. And also that morning when I woke up, I was having like not only like the typical like migraine aura in my visual field, it was almost like it was blacked out a portion of my vision. And my tongue also felt numb. So I knew something wasn't quite right. I called my primary care. They said go to the ER. So I went to the ER. And again, they ran all the tests. Everything was normal. Just a migraine. No big deal. So at that point, I let it alone. I was also dealing with some dizziness, so my primary care decided that they were going to do a workup on my heart, make sure there was nothing going on with my heart. Heart was fine. I did a bunch of testing on that, and everything came back normal, which was fantastic. And that was all great. So I kind of just let things go. Like everyone kept telling me, nope, nothing's wrong. All your testing is normal. Your scans are normal. Everything's normal. This, that, this. Great. So let's fast forward. And about a year or two ago, I had like one of those visual field disturbances, but these weren't your typical like migraine visual disturbances. Almost like if you look at a bright light or you look at the sun, or when you're driving, you get like a flash of like the sun beaming off of like a metal object or something. So I would get those, and it would feel like when that happens, and then afterward you have like that after effect. So when you blink, you can almost like still see that like shine, that like grayish thing. That was happening without the reason for it. So it just lasted. It didn't go away. Typically they only last a few minutes and they dissipate, but this one did not. It stayed with me, and finally after about, I would say around a week, I was like, okay, let me go. And I wasn't having like any major other symptoms at all. And it was not like really like affecting my vision, because it was like, so if I'm looking straight at you guys into the camera, it's like down in the right hand corner. So it wasn't something that was like right here, like right in front of my face, where like every time I looked, I couldn't see something. It was very faint off into the edge there, so it didn't really affect my day to day. So I just tried to brush it off and ignore it. But after about a week, I was like, no more. This is not going away. Something doesn't seem right. So I went to the ophthalmologist just to start there, have them look at my eye, make sure there was nothing wrong with my eye itself. They said everything looked good. So I let it go for about another week, and finally I reached out to my primary care doctor, and he was able to link me with a ophthalmologist, and he did a thorough workup on my eye. I was probably at his office for a little over an hour, and they did a bunch of different testing and imaging on my eye, and they reviewed everything, said everything looked great. Some of the best eyes he's seen in a long time. No evidence of like high blood pressure, no major evidence of any like nerve damages or whatever kind of damages happened within your eyes. Everything looked good. So I'm like, okay, so it's definitely not my eye. It has nothing to do with my eye. He also said that he assumed that it had to do with migraines. So I let it go. Still, the visual disturbance is still there. Excuse me. So I let it go again. And after about a month of it happening, I started to get some other like neurological deficits. And by that, I mean, the one day I was at work and my finger, if I recall correctly, it was this finger, it started to go kind of numb. Not the whole finger, like I still had some sensation, but it definitely felt numb. You know, like when your foot falls asleep, like that's kind of what it felt like. Um, So that threw me. I was like, well, maybe I was resting my elbow on my desk wrong, or you're trying to chalk up a bunch of things in your mind. So I was like, okay. Well, after about an hour or two with that happening, finally I'm like, okay, this is still not going away, still there. And with the visual thing going on, I called my husband. I was like, listen, I'm going to go to the ER, just have it checked out, talk to them, see what they think. So I go there, they did their whole typical workup and everything came back fine. So they said, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to keep you overnight for observation. And so they did. And they also ran a bunch of scans that day. So they did a bunch of MRIs. And by a bunch of MRIs, guys, I mean that I was in the MRI machine itself for over an hour and a half. No joke. The whole time just laying there. Like, it was awful. And anyone who's had them done, there's nothing like painful about it, but it's really hard to just like sit there, especially when you're dealing with something like that and your mind is just racing, right? You're trying to block out the noise and not think about what could be happening, and you're stuck just with your thoughts. So, one little tip that I will give you guys, something that I do and I still do to this day when I'm having anxiety or go through a panic attack. So, I say typically 3 to 4 letter words. I spell them out and then I spell them backwards. So, as an example, if I say cat, CAT, TAC, dog, DOG, GOD, fit, FIT, TIF. So, it kind of narrows your brain in, and it gives you something to think about, and you actually have to think about it because you're spelling it forward and backward. So just a little tip, maybe that's something that might work for one of you, but it works really well for me. It brings my focus in and it kind of distracts me from all the noise, the jumble. So anyway, they did MRIs of my MRIs and MRAs. I don't know quite the difference, but I know they did both. So they did my brain, they did my like neck area, and I'm pretty sure they did some of my spine to check for like MS and stuff like that. And they did my orbit, so my eyes. They did like a focus study on my eyes, and everything came back beautifully, they said. So the next morning, I was told I was being released. Everything was good. And I spoke with a neurologist there, and he scheduled me for a follow-up neurology appointment. No big deal. And I was going to follow up with my primary care. And about an hour later, in walks the new nurse, like a changeover in shifts. And she came on and she was just chatting with me, kind of trying to get my story and why I was there and stuff. And I told her, and she's like, okay, well, let me just take a look at your file and, get more acquainted with what's going on with you. I'm like, great, no problem. So she goes and does that. And about 15 or 20 minutes later, she comes back and she's like, hey, I looked through your file. Everything you stated is correct. She's like, the only thing I'll just let you know, just really for more of an FYI type of thing. It does look like at one point, they have noted here a tiny old, and I want to make sure I'm saying this right, so I wrote it down. GG. So a tiny old lacunar stroke or infarct. And I'm like, hold up. And she was like ready to walk out. Like, she's just like, I just wanted to let you know, no big deal. And I'm like, did infarct, stroke? Stroke? I had a stroke? She's like, yes, at some point you had a very small stroke. And I'm baffled because no doctor to this point has told me this. And I'm being told that I'm being released. And I'm just like, excuse me? Like, what do you just want to casually stroll by and say, by the way, you had a stroke. So I was just kind of like, okay. So I was trying to process this. I was by myself. My husband was still at work. He was going to be heading over after. I was bawling my eyes out, guys. Like, no lie, when you're 37 years old and your child at the time was 6 years old, I'm just like, no, like, this can't be happening, like all these things start, rolling around in your head and you're just like, stroke, stroke, stroke. Like, that's all I could think. And she was nice. I mean, she sat with me for a while and explained things to me and stuff like that. But I was just baffled, and that's just our healthcare system, guys. It's awful. Like, all these doctors that I spoke with and nurses that I spoke with for the past 24 hours, not one single person decided to tell me or found it important to tell me that at some point I've had a stroke. Which, mind you, I've been working with the same healthcare system for probably the prior, like, 8 to 10 years since we've lived here. So it's not like I was a new patient. They had history on me. So it's like, nowhere is it noted that I am a stroke patient, with prior history of a stroke. So it's like no one decided to tell me that it was necessary. Um, I was pretty frustrated, to say the least, and also something that happened in between here is they wanted to come in and do a ultrasound of my heart, which I was fine with. But again, this was after they told me I was being released and that there was nothing wrong. So I was a little confused by it. And then they're like, and we're also going to do a bubble study. And I'm like, what's a bubble study? Why are we doing a bubble study? You guys have told me everything's good and I'm being released. And she's just like, oh, it's just like the regular ultrasound. We just do agitated saline through your IV and we check for bubbles crossing your heart. And I'm like, why are we doing that? She's like, well, because for some people who have strokes, it's important to look for. But why are we doing it? Like, I've been told I'm good to go, nothing's wrong, everything's good. I've just got to follow up with neurology. I don't know. It's just what the doctor wanted me to do. Well, can we get more information to find out why we're doing this? Well, I could ask, but it's going to take hours before we even get this. I'm like, okay, well, and I told her, I'm like, I've already been informed by your entire staff, everyone that's talked to me, that they're unsure that any of this is going to be covered by insurance, just simply because there's been no found, information to support anything. So they're not sure that insurance will cover it. I'm like, so no, I don't want to do extra testing when I'm told everything is fine. But again, I was still in that gray area. I'm kind of backtracking. I was in that gray area where I was told everything was good. I was told I was being sent home. And at this point, I hadn't been informed that I had that small stroke. So I'm in my mind like, why am I going to pay for you to do another study when there's nothing going on and you guys are releasing me? And she just brushed it off. No, I can ask the doctor, but we probably won't get an answer or it'll be hours. So I'm just like, no, we're not doing the bubble study, which in hindsight, I should have done the bubble study. Just a little foreshadowing there for you. But anyway, so we went home and we left it alone. And I followed up with primary. I followed up with neurology. Everyone brushed it off. 37 years old, having stroke. Okay. In my mind, that's not normal, right? That's not normal. And everyone that I spoke with was just like, yeah, they're super common in old people. They're usually found in a lot of MRIs, but, because they're very tiny vascular strokes, like they're very small vascular. And in my mind, though, I'm just like, I don't care. I'm not old. Like, I'm not 60, 65 years old, and this wasn't found on a whim when you were looking for something else. Like, I was being reviewed for obvious stroke symptoms. Like, there's a correlation here. Like, that's not normal. And they just all, nope, you're fine. It's just probably your blood pressure and your diet. And of course, being obese, everyone wants to throw everything on that. I know there's people out there who are used to hearing that, and it irritates the living daylights out of you. So nonetheless, I had to advocate for myself. So through my work, I am super blessed to be able to partner with the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. Or for other people in my company, it could be, Florida or Tennessee. I think there's one. Wherever they are, whichever one is closest to you is the one you go to and partner with. So in my case, it's partnering with the one in Rochester, Minnesota. So I had to advocate for myself, and my supervisor had already utilized the complex care program, is what it's called, through Mayo Clinic, through our health insurance. And I was like, well, do you think I'd benefit from it? She's like, to be completely honest, Lisa, just do it. She's like, it literally costs you nothing. And it's a second set of doctors looking at your file. She's like, so worst case is they say, nope, they're right. Everything's good. Keep doing what you're doing. Or they're going to say, guess what? We think we may be able to help in some form or fashion to find out what's going on and be a partner for you. And I'm like, done. Let's do it. So I submitted all my paperwork to them, and they reviewed my files and my imaging, and they agreed that something wasn't quite right and it wasn't adding up, that based on my records and my results and testing, something else was going on. And so we partnered with the Mayo Clinic, And they did accept me into their complex care program, which I am so blessed to be a part of. Because through my work, guys, I don't pay a single penny. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter what they do. If it's through the Mayo Clinic, they don't charge me. Absolutely nothing. Completely free. And I know, again, taboo to talk about it, but we're talking, pretty close to about, I want to say, $50,000 worth of medical procedures and testing I've had done through the Mayo Clinic. I've not paid a penny and I'll never have to. So there's no gimmicks, no hidden agenda, nothing. They literally pay all of it. They pay for my gas and travel to get up there. They pay for my hotel when I have to stay up there. They pay for our food as well. So we get, like, I have to have a caregiver with me when I go. That's part of the contract. And so my husband comes with me, and we each get like a set dollar amount each day for food. And yeah, guys, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's such a huge, huge blessing. Like, I almost don't even feel worthy of it, if that makes sense. Like, I don't feel like I'm deserving. And it's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. So anyway, I'll get off of that topic. So when I went up to Mayo the first time, they had already had access to my files. And so they brought me in, and I partnered with a ton of specialists. So initially, I kind of speak with internal medicine. She reviews everything with me and comes up with a game plan. And then I partnered also with neurology, nephrology, ophthalmology, and an additional neurologist as well. There were two different neurologists that I spoke with, because I spoke with the original one about my migraines, and then when they started to narrow down what was happening, I spoke with a different gentleman as well in neurology. So testing wise, I printed it all off, because I tell you guys, I was there for an entire week. So a Monday to a Friday, I was there, and they did a huge workup on me. So that is why I feel confident that I do feel like I am on the right path, essentially, to kind of do what I need to do to get myself better. So some of the things that we did was a ton of blood work. And when I say a ton of blood work, there's a fun story behind this, because they initially did a urine sample and they test that for a ton of things as well. And they do an initial, like, metabolic panel type thing in the very beginning, and they did that. And then once they got those results back and wanted to go a different direction with things, they had me go back in for more blood work. 20 plus vials they needed from me. So when I say they were doing blood work, they were doing blood work. And I was back there for about a half hour, because here's the fun story. I am a really hard stick. It is really hard for people to get in there. So I was back there. We started working with one person, and then a second person joined, then a third person joined, and then the fourth tech joined. All four of them were working together to figure out how they can manage to get the amount of blood that we needed for this poll. Oh, guys, it was crazy. So there was four people working on me. They had me under blankets. They had heating, like the little heating bags on my arms. Oh, for the love of it. It took these poor people so long and so many sticks to get it, and they finally did. But I was back there for a good half hour trying to get that done. So they were wonderful, though. They were very, like, pleasant and were joking with me and having a good time with me about it. It was fine for me. I'm used to it, but I felt terrible. Like, it took four of them to get it, but we got it. So anyway, we did, they checked for connective tissue diseases, hemoglobin, antibodies, like, clotting disorders, prothrombin times, like, a ridiculous amount of stuff. So they ruled everything out. And guys, I tell you, literally everything in my blood work came back straight down the middle almost. Almost. I mean, it was pretty close. Not a single thing came up in that. Or the urine sample, none of it. It was all perfect. So again, then they start sending me for all these other tests. So just a quick recap of what they did. We did on top of the blood work, all right, we did a transcranial Doppler. We did an MRI of my pituitary gland. They did a 6-hour blood pressure monitor. So they had me wear the machine, and it was portable, and they checked it every 10 minutes. A ultrasound of my kidneys and my renal artery. Renal artery. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm so sorry. My renal artery. And they also did an ultrasound of like the veins and arteries in my legs as well to rule out any type of like, is it DVT? The blood clots in your legs. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but nonetheless, it all came back completely normal. I also did a heart monitor for 24 hours, and I also did a sleep study, like a very simple sleep study where they just monitored your heart rate and your oxygen overnight, which did not do well. My oxygen dropped pretty low, so I do know, and I've got to talk to them at this visit if they're going to explore that further. And they also did it's called a TEE, which is a transesophageal echocardiogram. So what that means is just like a regular like ultrasound of your heart, except they scope you, and they kind of go down your throat, and they look at your heart behind the heart, so they have a better view of everything. So within 2 days, I was notified of what the problem was. And the initial doctor, he suspected this anyway. He had suspected, after they did the transcranial Doppler, they suspected that it was a PFO, and that is a patent foramen ovale. And I will put some pictures up as we talk through this stuff as well for you guys. It's a very common thing, but in my case, it was very large and could have attributed to my strokes, essentially. So he is the one who decided, hey, let's move forward with doing the TEE to 100% confirm it. So he did the TEE, and it absolutely showed bubbles crossing with the agitated saline, and we got the confirmation of that, and it is a very large shunt that was happening, so blood crossing when it shouldn't. And my it's an ASA, atrial septal aneurysm. Again, I'll put it up there so you guys know exactly what it is. But that just means like the crossing area, not only did it have the hole, but it was like wavy. It was not stable. So that means that it was almost promoting the passage and stuff like that. It was making it more prominent. So they discovered all of that, and they're like, let's do this, let's move forward. We find it in your best interest to do a PFO closure. So I did meet with an interventional cardiologist, and he was absolutely phenomenal. And he walked me through everything and what it would be and what it would look like and how it's done and why they do it and what it looks like and everything. So I was like, okay, let's move forward and do this. I was absolutely terrified, guys. I mean, I was terrified. But we moved forward with it, and they scheduled the surgery. And in between that time frame, between me leaving Mayo with my diagnosis and going in for the surgery, I was still having some issues, and they moved it up to get me in there sooner, just in case, to avoid any further strokes or anything like that. And so we went out to Mayo to have the procedure done. They did the procedure. Everything went well. And I was so scared. Like, I can't even explain to you. I was absolutely terrified. And so they do the procedure through your femoral artery. So they go up. It's not like open heart. They go up, just catheter, and they place the device and pull out. So they did it that way. And with that, I was put to sleep fully for this procedure, but not everyone is. Some people are not, but they did for me because they knew I had struggled with the TEE, meaning I had a hard time with it. I wasn't able to sit still. Like, I was choking and gagging a lot. So they figured the safest thing for them and for myself was to be put to sleep completely. So I was put to sleep for it, and everything went wonderfully. And I will say, though, after the procedure, you have to lay flat for about 4 hours. And when I was laying there, she came in, and I had just started to come to at this point. So I was still kind of loopy, and nothing was really bugging me. But she was putting pressure at the catheter site, the femoral artery there, and she wanted to make sure that it was, closed off before she sat me up and before because I have to like get up and walk around to make sure the bleeding had stopped fully before they let you leave. And they were doing that, and she was pressing around, and apparently I did not see it because I couldn't see it, but my husband was watching, and she was pushing on it, and apparently it was not fully closed off yet because my husband almost passed out. I felt so bad for him. But apparently it shot straight up. Some blood did right out of my leg. And again, I was still kind of loopy. None of it didn't hurt. Nothing was hurting. It just felt like pressure. But yeah, so anyway, I laid there a little bit longer, and then they got me up and walked me around and stuff. But it all went fantastically. And so far, so good. I had a very good recovery process. I did do 12 weeks of cardiac rehab as well because they did recommend I do that. So I did do that. And what else am I missing? Oh, also, while they were in there, not only did I have the PFO, the ASA, apparently I also had an ADS, ASD, atrial septal defect. So that is a true congenital heart issue. So I was born with it, and it is a true defect. And it essentially is just another hole in my heart. So not only did I have the PFO hole, I had the ASA, so my floppy whatever septum, I guess, and then an additional hole. So they used a 35 millimeter PFO occluder. It's by Amplatzer, I believe. And they put it in there. They actually started off with a smaller one based on my notes, and they had to up the size because it was not large enough. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the story. So I definitely was a rare case. They did say that the structural defect in my heart was a little more complicated than they anticipated before they went in. So they didn't even know I had the ASD until they got in to do the procedure and close it off. But their attempt was to close it with the one large device, the 35 millimeter device. And they did say that at time of closing, there is still a little bit of leakage that's happening like at the one rim in there. Now, what does happen is over time, your heart does kind of enclose over this and it becomes part of you. So they're hopeful. Their hope is that it will close over and not be a problem moving forward. So I did go back up at the 6-month mark, which was in January of this year. They did another ultrasound of my heart. They did more blood work, and they did another TEE again, where they go down and they check the heart. And unfortunately, I do still have some large shunting happening during Valsalva, which is essentially pushing, like bearing down, like you're going poop, like that kind of thing. So that it adds pressure to your heart, and that's usually when there's an influx or a larger amount of bubbles that pass through. So that's not great. But they did say that they wanted to reevaluate at the 1-year mark, and then we're going to have discussions if there is still an issue about what next steps are. Unfortunately, at this point, I don't know what next steps will be. They did say some people can have an additional device implanted, but they're not so sure that that would be the best bet for me because the team of doctors was concerned about erosion of my heart just because they put such a large device in there to begin with because of all my extra stuff going on. And if they do an additional device, they're concerned that it could like get too close to the edge of the heart and essentially begin to erode the heart itself. So I don't really want that to happen. And I know they don't either. So I know that's not the goal, but I don't know what my other options are going to be if this next, time I'm up there, they find that there's still large shunting. So I don't know. I'm still up in the air at this point. I'm devastated that it didn't fully fix the problem. But I mean, there's no guarantees. There's never a guarantee in health when it comes to surgeries and stuff like that, guys. It sucks, but that's the reality, and it's something I'm still trying to live with and cope with and recognize and know. And I'm trying to like mentally prepare myself that when I go next week, that I could be told that I'm sorry, like that it's still bypassing. So, and I have some other things too that are, I think they're called AVMs. It's more to do with your lungs and like, I don't know. There's other stuff that there could be going on as well. So, um, there's just some other stuff that still needs to be discussed and talked about. And I just don't feel like talking about it just simply because I don't know enough about those things yet for me to like talk about them with any type of knowledge or education base. So that's the only reason I'm not sharing that part yet, just because I don't know yet. So I don't want to say things out of turn or that are untrue. So at this point, we're still just a waiting game, and I'm going back up, and they're definitely going to do another ultrasound. They're going to do some blood work. And I know they're more than likely going to have to do the TEE again, where they scope down, which is unfortunate because it's really not fun, but I know it gives them the best images that they need to determine what's going on. So anyway, I think that's it. Just know that, when stuff like this happens, it's happening. You're not crazy, advocate for yourself, love yourself, recognize when something isn't right, and don't take no for an answer. Because I know for a fact, being a plus size individual and being young, everyone wants to tell me that it's because of my weight. And this time it was not because of my weight. Everything that has happened maybe my blood pressure did have a factor in it. I don't know for sure. There's no guarantees on that. But pretty much everything that's happened has not happened because of my weight. So please do not let them gaslight you and make you feel like you're not valid, that you're not important, or that just because you're this age or this weight that you're just crazy. It's just anxiety and you need to drink water and lose weight. I know you've all heard that. I've heard that lots of times. So advocate for yourself, please. If nothing else, advocate for yourself. And just, if nothing else, take that away from here. Advocate for yourself and know that what you're feeling is valid. And I see you, I hear you. And if anyone out there is going through anything similar to this on a higher level, on a lower level, doesn't matter. What you're feeling is what you're feeling, and that is your life. And these invisible illnesses, like, people would never look at me and think that, but I've had 2 strokes essentially, and I'm 38 years old, almost 39 here in a few months. So I never in a million years would have thought this is where I'd be, but here I am. And I pray for you. So listen, if you have something going on and you want extra prayers, please comment below, and I would be more than happy to read it and send up some prayers for you. And I think that's the end of this. I'm going to keep you guys updated. Probably in about a week or so, you'll have the actual Mayo trip. So when we go up there, I'm going to film as much as I can, but try and be respectful, just because it is obviously a medical facility and it is extremely busy up there. So I'll do the best that I can while being respectful of others around me and the doctors as well. But I will try and get as much footage as I can and share that trip with you. Just because, who knows, maybe someone out there has a trip up to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, or is just being seen by someone at any of the Mayo clinics and just kind of wants to see what it looks like. So I will get that posted in about another week or so. And guys, I would absolutely love it if you would like and subscribe to my channel if you like content like this, or if you like cooking content, cleaning content, family content, trip content. I do it all. So join us. We'd love to have you. And again, comment down below if you have something you're going through. You don't need to be specific. You be as specific as you feel comfortable. And if you need prayers, I will pray for you. And I would almost guarantee if anyone else reads through those comment threads, they will pray for you as well. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you've enjoyed my story. And have a great rest of your day. We'll see you on the next one.